And welcome those who have joined us at this time. And we'll start off with our bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Or let's find the right place. So I will admit that there have been moments when I have looked at Torah Tmima and said maybe we should do some of that, but I want to be careful not to get sidetracked too much. So we're going to keep going, and we'll see if we come to a place uh, that seems okay, and we still have time. We can look at some Torah Tmima. And it's on the one that I was looking at was how they derive, the two temples being destroyed, and he has some really interesting things to say about that, where Benjamin and Joseph, fall on each other's neck, and embrace. So let's go, and here the brothers have now returned to the land of Canaan. Va'yalu miMitzrayim, they went up from Egypt. Va'yavo'u Eretz Canaan, they came to the land of Canaan. El Yaakov Avihem, to Jacob their father. And it says, Vayagidu lo lemor, and they said to him, they told him, saying, Od Yosef Chai, Joseph is still alive. V'chihu moshel b'chol Eretz Mitzrayim, and indeed he is the ruler, the governor of all of the land of Egypt. Vayafog libo, and his heart ceased. He fainted away. Ki lo he'emin lahem, because he did not believe them. So
this one says his heart changed.
Yeah. So it could mean that. You'll see. Rashi,
there's a Rashi.
Rashi is going to comment on that.
Okay.
The he hu moshel, that might sound like a question in the Hebrew, and so I mean it could be, and indeed is he the governor? I mean it doesn't mean that. It's just that Rashi wants to clarify that for Asher moshel, and in fact he is the ruler, the governor. Here we have Vayafog libo. So his heart went away, his heart ceased. Nechalaf libo, his heart went away. V'halach milah amin, and he couldn't believe it. He went away from believing. Lo haya libo poneh el divrei hadvarim. It says like as if his heart could not face those words, those words, the words they said. Lashon mefigim ta'aman. So we have, for example, where something's flavor ceases, it goes, it no longer is there, it goes away. But Lashon Mishnah, in the Mishnah, in the Hebrew of the Mishnah.
Here it says that their taste changes.
Okay.
So, I mean, those are kind of different, but I don't know if it.
Yeah, maybe. I think it sort of wafts away, is how I sort of understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not for me to argue with them, but just you can take a look at Art Scroll, not Art Scroll, the Sfaria as well. So we can see how the context works. Uchamo, and in Eicha, in the Book of Lamentations, it says Me'ein hafugot, without ceasing. In other words, they are mourning. The troubles are coming without ceasing. And Jeremiah Memchet, Jeremiah 48, Verecho lo neimar, and it's I guess aroma. Okay, doesn't come to an end, something like that. Namer usually is sort of, a namer is actually a leopard, so it sort of has the idea of spotted, but here it doesn't mean that, because the context doesn't make any sense translating it that way. But Targaminan, we translate into Aramaic vereche, and it's aroma, it's odor, something like that. lawfag does not cease.
Faria has it your way.
Mhm. Okay.
Just
So,
Chabad has it differently for whatever reason.
okay, okay. You just have to, decide what sort of makes the most sense in this.
They're not that hugely different, I
They are
guess.
not
I mean,
that hugely different. Correct. They're not opposites or anything like that.
I don't know that I can make more sense of one or the other.
Mhm. Yeah. But it could be like his heart stopped,
Which
as
is a
using it
change.
metaphorically,
Mhm.
right? That he was shocked. He was so shocked, which we can certainly believe.
Luckily, not really, because that could have happened
No,
too.
no, it's not literal. It's
Well,
not.
metaphorically, you would think his heart would start again from having stopped when he thought Joseph was dead, metaphorically.
The
Mhm.
shock.
Yeah.
Must have been
Well, I
quite-
mean, that particular news, that the son you lost, you hadn't seen for 30 years,
Yeah,
etc.,
heart
is all of a
stopping.
sudden ruler of Egypt, is alive and is ruler of Egypt. That's
Mhm.
that's a real easy thing to believe. So,
Wait a minute, wasn't Sarah, when Sarah knew the news, not, I mean, she never knew that Isaac had been killed because he wasn't in the Kedah, but when she found out he had survived that's when she died. So
so
it was
that's
good news.
okay. So that's not the way I sort of have seen it. It's rather that the way the Midrash puts it is that sort of Satan showed her a picture of Isaac on the altar and Abraham lifting his knife, and that's
Oh,
when her soul departed. So
uh,
she was, I mean, she was just overcome at that particular vision. We'll go back to this. Vayidabru elav et kol divrei Yosef, and they spoke to him all the words of Joseph, asher diber alehem, which he had spoken to them. Vayar et ha'agalot, and he saw the wagons, asher shalach Yosef lasetoto, which Joseph had sent to carry him. Vatachi ruach Yaakov avihem, and the spirit of Jacob, their father, came alive, right? Revived,
Mhm.
literally. So there's something interesting here that Rashi's going to point out. Who was the one who sent the wagons? Pharaoh was the one who told Joseph to do that, but here it's saying Joseph sent them. And so the other thing is that the last thing that is in the sentence, which leads Jacob's spirit to revive, is seeing the wagons. Why would seeing the wagons revive his spirit? And so there's a very cool Rashi on this particular question. So it called Divrei Yosef, all the words of Joseph. So not just, it could have been it Divrei Yosef. What are we adding by saying kol Divrei Yosef? All the words of Joseph. There's something additional that's being conveyed here. So what was it? Siman las masar lahem. But okay, he sent uh, through them a sign. Bameh haya osek. What was he dealing with? Well, that is with Jacob. What was he discussing with Jacob? Keshepiresh mimenu, when he left him, off to go to see the welfare of his brothers. Remember, Jacob sent him off to see what his brothers were doing in Dothan. What were they talking about? What was their last conversation? The Parshat Eglah Arufa. So cool and interesting. They were talking about the halacha of the Eglah Arufa. What's the Eglah Arufa? The Eglah Arufa is a situation where people come across a body between two cities. This is in Deuteronomy, I believe, and
Mhm.
they do not know who, what happened here. They don't know, and they measure to the closest city, and the elders of the city have to come out. They have to slaughter or a calf over running water, I believe it is, and they have to make a declaration that they are not responsible for the death of this individual. And this is the basic halacha of the Eglah Arufa. So it's talking about a situation where we don't know who caused the death. And in some ways, this is very parallel, interestingly enough, to what happened to Joseph at that particular time. All right, even though he didn't die. But of course, Jacob would have been in a situation where he only saw the coat with the blood on it, and he wouldn't have known, you know, for sure what had happened to Joseph. But the point is, there's a play on words. The word eglah and the word agalah are they're punning. And so when he sent the cart, that's why it says the carts of Joseph. Zehu she'enam ne'emar. This is the point of what it says, where it says, Vayar et ha'agalot asher shalach Yosef, that he saw the agalot, the carts, i.e., that subtle reference to the Eglah Arufa, which Joseph sent. Velo me'emar asher shalach Paro, and it doesn't say which Pharaoh sent. And the fact is that Pharaoh was the one who told Joseph to do this. So there's that sort of interesting little subtlety there. But Techi Ruach Yaakov, and Jacob's spirit revived. Sharta, this is so interesting. Sharta alav Shechina, the Shechina, God, the divine presence, again rested upon him. Shepirsha mimehu, because it had left him. So there are statements that basically say that the Shekhinah only it can only rest on a person if they are basically have a feeling of joy inside them. That if they're depressed, if they're very sad, the Shekhinah cannot make its presence upon them. So obviously he would have been in deep mourning after Joseph died. He'd lost Rachel and then he lost Joseph. And so the Shekhinah, I haven't read that, but I'm surmising that that's why the Shekhinah had not been present with him. I think that's sort of also borne out in the fact that, as I mentioned at the beginning of this whole episode of Joseph, that we don't read anywhere where God speaks to anyone. But we'll eventually come to a place where God speaks to Jacob.
In the Sim Shalom, during the festival, at the end of the festival, Amidah, when it has the, written out personal type prayers,
Yes.
it talks about despair, kind of implying that doesn't leave room for God, that despair is more of a separation from God.
Right.
That you're so into whatever is upsetting you that it kind of, God just kind of leaves the picture, and you have to kind of remember or whatever, or maybe you just go through the despair and reconnect. But the despair is separation.
It
according
is.
to this.
Okay, so on a logical level, right? If you truly are a believer, if you really do believe in a divine presence, then ultimately there'd be never a reason for you to despair.
Right. That's what I was trying to say. I didn't
Right.
say it
No,
right.
no, it's okay. I think you said it sort of more metaphorically. You did that was the point of what was being said, right? That as to why that is the case, because it's saying you don't have sufficient faith, and if you don't have sufficient faith, that's why you're going to despair. So there's also other implications, which is the degree to which we can use our thinking to control our emotions. I mean, despair is an emotion, but nevertheless, one can sort of fight that feeling by thinking through one's faith.
It says, teach me to transcend sorrow with abiding contentment, for estrangement from you grows out of despair.
Yeah. Yeah. It is interesting. That there's always hope.
That has helped me so many times come out of despair to read that.
Yes.
I don't always remember it, but
Right.
if it's there on the holiday, it's been helpful.
It's pretty cool.
I hear you.
Yeah, I know. There are moments when one might feel that way.
And
And
we're
it
on
can
the
help you
fourth
from getting
aliyah.
angry. Sorry, I'm sorry.
We're on the fourth aliyah.
I know, I know. I wonder if we should, if I should go back and do the Torah. I'm going to keep going. It's fine. Vayomer Yisrael, and Israel, that is Jacob, of course, said, "It is enough, Od Yosef b'nichai, that, or it is a great thing, Rav, but Rav can mean it's also enough that my son Joseph is alive. Elcha ve'enu b'terem amut. I will go and see him before I die." Okay, so here's how Rashi's translating, because the Hebrew syntactically isn't that easy. Rav od, Rav li od simcha, v'chedva. So Rashi puts it so beautifully. He says, joy and happiness is still much. I have much. Ho'il v'od Yosef nichai, since my son Joseph is still happy, still alive. I'm sorry, I'm focusing on the happiness here.
Yeah.
Right, right. So he's saying, I still have a lot of happiness and joy to anticipate now that I know that my son Joseph is alive. Again, just commenting on the language in general of the Torah here, that it's so beautiful. Vayisa Yisrael, and Israel journeyed v'chol asher lo, and everything that he had, vayavo be'era shava, and he came to Beer Shava, vayizbach zevachim, and he offered up offerings, sacrifices, Elohei Aviv Yitzchak, to the God of his father Isaac. So there is a sort of a sense that you cannot say Elohei so and so unless that person has filled out their years and is no longer living. Because, and perhaps part of the reason is that as long as you're alive and in this world, you can always change your place of faith. So when you say, the God of Isaac, what you're saying is that Isaac held this amazing and firm belief in Hashem. So let's take a look if Rashi on this. Yes, Be'er Shava, to Be'er Sheva. So he explains the sort of grammatical construct. Kamo leve'er sheva, or leve'er shava would be the pausal form. To be'er sheva. To, that's like le. And he says, hey basof teva, when you have a letter hey at the end of a word, b'makom lamed batchilata, it takes the place of a lamed at the beginning of the word. Le Elohei Aviv Yitzchak. So here we go, to the God of his father Isaac. Hainu, Chayav Adam Bichvod Aviv. It is a person is obligated to show honor to his father. Yoter mi bichvod zikno, more than the honor he shows to his grandfather. Lefichach tala b'Yitzchak v'lo b'Avraham, and that's why we say the God of Isaac and not the God of Abraham.
And
And we
that's true
know,
with
yeah.
mourning. You have a chiyuv for your father, but not your grandfather.
No, it's not saying not; it's saying more.
But
Yeah,
anyway, in mourning, it's also more.
more for your father.
Right.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, again, and so that sort of begs a question is why would you think differently, right? I mean, if it's saying that, then the assumption has to be, well, maybe you're supposed to honor your grandfather more than your father. And so scripture is coming to teach us through this, that in fact is not the case. And it's possible that because of your grandfather's age in comparison to your father's age, you should give more respect to your grandfather. But the answer is no.
Even if your grandfather is Abraham.
Even if your grandfather's Abraham. Yes.
Is
So
there significance in the first verses? So Yaakov is referred to as Yaakov, and in the most recent verses we've been reading, he's referred to as Israel. Is there a
That's lovely, and I'm sorry we don't have Shira Beth with us because she studied with Nechama Leibovich, and what Shira Beth told us is that Nechama Leibovich is very. What she said was that Nechama Leibovich looks carefully at people's direct speech and what changes they may be in people reporting in their speech something that happened or something somebody else said, that there's very often great significance. This isn't exactly the same situation, but I'd like to say that when he says Yisrael, that perhaps it indicates Jacob's feeling more confident, more blessed than when he's Yaakov. So look at this. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jocelyn.
Jacob sometimes call him Israel and sometimes call him Yaakov, or
Right. We know that in the Bible sometimes
no,
Jacob's
but specifically Jacob.
right.
Jacob sometimes call him Israel.
I'm sorry, Jacob is called Israel.
I mean, sorry. Um, okay, sorry.
Okay. So again, here, Vayomer Elohim Israel. Look at this. Finally, at this particular point in the story, we have God speaking to Jacob. The Marot Halayla, in visions of the night. Vayomer Yaakov, Yaakov. And he says, Jacob, Jacob. And as I think we have mentioned this before, certainly at the beginning of Vayikra, that the repetition of the name is one of endearment. That saying Jacob, Jacob is an endearing, it's a way of, the fact that you're saying the person's name, right? And I know that sometimes when we fall in love with someone, you know, their name is able to conjure up such feelings inside of us that we'll obsess over their names. Vayomer Hineni, and he said, "Here I am."
Like Avram said.
Yes, he did. I'm
Response to.
present. I'm present. I'm paying attention. Here I am.
And Nick and I do double each other's names in terms of endearment.
Yeah, yep.
Nick,
Here
Nick,
we.
and Lar.
So you have a biblical origin.
That's right.
Yeah, a pasuk to bear witness. Vayomer, and he said, this is God speaking now. Anochi ha'el Elohei avicha. I am the God of your father. Al tira meredet Mitzrayma. Do not fear from going down to Egypt. Remember, Isaac had wanted to go down to Egypt, and God had told him not to do that. And but here God is reassuring Jacob that it's the right thing to do, to leave the land of Canaan and go down to Egypt. Ki lagoy gadol asimcha sham, because I will make you a great nation there. I will turn you into a great nation there. So there we go. Look at this. Rashi just said what we just said. Yaakov, Yaakov, Lashon Chiba. It is a term of endearment.
Mm-hmm.
Al tira meredet Mitzrayim, do not fear from going down to Egypt. There's the Mitzrayim, that hey at the end of a word that means to, like la in the beginning of a word. Lefisha haya meitzer, because the reason why God says this again, says this to Jacob. If God is saying this to Jacob, what can we infer about Jacob's feelings? If God has to tell him not to worry about doing that, then obviously he is worried about doing it, right? This is something we clarified before. Lefisha haya meitzar al sheniskak latzet l'chutza aretz, because he was upset, he was concerned, in that he needed to go out of the land of Israel. He didn't want to go out of the land of Israel. And that may be a good place for us to stop for today. And we'll continue, God willing, next year at the same time with this. So I think what I'll do is I'll make the mark next to Rivi E.
No. Oh. Yeah. Next
See where
year.
we did I
Get
go?
it.
I went too far, perhaps.
Yeah, we were about to start, yeah, Ribby
There we are. Okay, that's fine.
26.
We'll start there. Go in here. So we'll try and remember. Oops.
You could
Nope.
write,
There we are.
to 2021.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not gonna attempt. I'm gonna stop the share and we'll stop the recording.